Hey guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Ace Podcast Nation, and I'm delighted today to be joined by Strictly Come Dancing winner, ex-England international, former Middlesex and Surrey batsman, and one of the most prolific batsmen in county cricket history, Mr. Mark Ramprakash. Welcome, Mark. How are you?
Thank you. Yes, very well, thanks. Good to be there.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. It's a real honour. I'm a big fan. After obviously following your career when I was a bit younger and still playing myself. So I'm really looking forward to having a quick chat with you. Um, so what I'd like to do first of all is so we can get to know you and your tastes a little bit. Is we ask you 7 quick fire questions and we just ask you to basically say the first thing which comes to mind. They're called the Magnificent Seven. Okay, so we first and foremost, favorite grounds to play at.
Favorite ground would be Barbados.
Interesting, like that. Ben Stokes, Ian Botham, or Freddie Flintoff?
Ian Botham.
Angriest teammate?
Nasser Hussain.
Most underrated player that you ever played with?
Oh, wow. Okay, the Middlesex, we had a keeper called Keith Brown in the late 80s, early 90s. And he was a really excellent keeper and a very often got very, really valuable runs. So I think within a county team, he was often underrated because there were other international players around him.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the name. Certainly, obviously, there wasn't as much kind of TV coverage back then to watch all the county games, but I certainly remember the name. Uh, Sir Garfield Sobers, Brian Lara, or Viv Richards? What a choice.
That's a tough one. Yeah. Well, I'm going to go with Viv Richards because he was my idol growing up. I remember watching him on the TV in 1976, and I think he remains the best player that I've ever seen. And I think that the fact that he didn't wear a helmet, distinguishes him from all the others. Not Garfield Sobers, obviously, but certainly from mid 80s onwards. I know a lot of the current players, they wouldn't dare think of not wearing a helmet. So that courage and bravery that he showed, yeah, for me, he's number one.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that as a Welshman. Mr. Richards, former Glamorgan batsman,
Yes.
obviously. But yeah, it's frightening to think that they didn't wear a helmet. So many of them in those days. But I mean, like you say, Viv was not fond of the helmets. I don't think he ever wore one, even later
No,
in his career either.
no, he didn't. Yeah, no, he
It's
didn't.
just
Yeah.
madness. Okay, the old lords or the new lords?
Wow. Yeah, New Lords, I think.
Okay,
Yeah.
is there for someone who played there for so many years? Is there much of a difference when you kind of stand out there in the middle?
Yeah, probably not actually. Probably not. I mean, the stands have been rebuilt, and they've been done very well. But I think in terms of playing surface and the nature of the pitch, there's not a lot of difference.
Because they kept the strip the same way, didn't they? They didn't
Yeah,
turn the pitch around. Yeah, I thought so.
yeah, and the slope's still the same. So yeah, it's not made a huge difference to playing there.
Okay. And then finally, the last of the Magnificent Seven, the greatest English batsman of all time.
Um, wow, what a question that is. Okay. Well, look, I'm going to say probably I'm going to go with Graham Gooch, and the
Okay.
reason is because he was an opening batsman, and I've got incredible respect for the guys who, by trade, open the batting against a new ball. It's so difficult, and to do it against the best in the world, and to be as successful as he was, yeah, he was a magnificent player, and we were very happy when you were in the same dressing room watching him get the pads on. He was going to give you a reassuring feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I can 100% understand that decision. Okay, so that's the quick fire questions out of the way. So we'll just have a little chat now about some various subjects. But what I do like to do with my guests is just briefly, in your own words, tell us a little bit about your kind of upbringing and basically how you got to where you are today.
Right. Okay. Well, so I'm born in England. My mum's English. My dad came to England in 1960, and he came from a place called Guyana. Um, and so he and his ancestors went from India to Guyana in 1880. So hence my surname is an Indian surname. He came over in 1960 to the UK. Had a love of cricket. We used to play in the back garden, and then we moved house, and I joined a local club, and he joined as well. Um, and so that's really how my love of cricket developed. Like any father and son, we used to play a lot together at weekends and stuff. And I learnt a lot of my cricket through my club. My local club were very important, as opposed to now, which were probably a lot of the kids that go on to become professionals are in private schools.
Yeah.
So my local club was really important to me. I signed professional for Middlesex in 1987 at the age of 17, which was an incredibly proud moment because I'd seen them play on TV, and I knew that they had a lot of international players. And at that time, Mike Gatting was captain of England, and he was fantastic for me. Really gave me a lot of confidence, and really was a very positive influence on me. And I did 14 years there, and then I decided to leave, and I went into the 11 years at Surrey, which was fantastic as well. I knew a lot of the players there, and as soon as I went there, I felt very comfortable in the environment. So I did 25 years as a playing career. Very, very lucky, stayed injury free most of the time. And then went on and did 5.5 years coaching England, which really enjoyed that. To work with the best players in the world and have a front row seat into international cricket was great. Worked with a lot of different coaches. Um, and so currently, I took on a job in January with Harrow School. I did a couple of months, and then of course it closed, unfortunately, due to the pandemic. But it's open now, and so currently that's what I'm up to.
Okay. So obviously you made your England debut at the young age of 21, and you mentioned there that you signed for Middlesex at 17. What was Mark Ramprakash like as a teenager? Because I think I read somewhere that you were pretty handy at football as well as cricket.
Yeah, so I reckon probably from the age of 10, 11, I used to play a lot of football in the winters, and I had a love of football just the same as cricket. And as I got older, I signed like a little schoolboy thing with Watford from 14 to 16. I remember as a 15-year-old, Watford went over to play Arsenal at London Colney, the training ground, and we lost 7-0, and I was playing central defence. So I think that probably told me to concentrate on cricket. But I still have a love of football, and it was really good. I think because it helped me. It really helped me fitness wise. It gave me a good base level of fitness, which really helped my cricket.
Yeah, I think like if it was anything like when I played, the two seasons always used to overlap. So I always used to get a bit of grief from the cricket people for not coming to nets because the football season would just be starting out or just finishing off, and vice versa. But obviously, you had to make your choice, and I'm glad you did because you went on to have a pretty sensational career. The But just before we get onto the kind of your county career and your international career, I did want to go through a couple of things. Like normally, I do not use Wikipedia as any sort of source of information because it obviously can be edited by people. But I did find some interesting things on your Wikipedia page, so I just wanted to discuss some of them, see how true some of them are, and kind of have a bit of fun with that. But one thing which caught my eye was a variety of nicknames which you had, or had, according to Wikipedia at least you had. And so I kind of wanted to ask you a bit about that, if that was all right. So let's see what these list of nicknames are. So the first one was Blood Axe, which is a interesting nickname. How did that come about?
Well, that was actually down to Angus Fraser, who felt that at times my commitment and intensity to the cause could sometimes bubble over.
Okay.
Um, and I felt that I was when I was a teenager and a young professional player. I was ambitious. I wanted to do really well, and I had a bit of fire in your belly, and I quite like that. to see that in youngsters, to have a passion for the game. And of course, um, you need that, if you're going to go on and excel at something. You need a determination. Of course, everyone's different and things come out in different ways, but um, I think that I came into a Middlesex dressing room in 1987, which was a very boisterous place. It was a very macho place. There was a lot of shall we say, healthy conflict. There was a lot of challenging, and people said things to you pretty bluntly. And I stood my ground and um, held my own, I guess, in amongst what was a largely, older dressing room
Yeah.
than I was. So yeah, that's how that one came about.
So, do you feel like in those early days you had a bit of a bit of a temper, or do you think it was more like a passion and just a determination to succeed? Because I saw that there was obviously, like I say, Wikipedia is very temperamental, but in the little bit which it says about Blood Axe, it says that teammates like Graham Gooch and Adam Hollyoak, for instance, are the two which are named, had to kind of speak to you just about your aggression within the game and things like that. Was that something which was an issue, or not even an issue, but like an ongoing thing, or is that something which has been put on the Wikipedia page, which is perhaps not true?
Well, it's not true. No, I'll have to get on to someone to change that.
Yeah, absolutely.
As so often happens, what is written in print. It's very difficult for individuals to challenge unless you have a lot of money,
Yeah,
and I don't. So a lot of things have been said about my career which aren't true. So Graham Gooch and Adam Hollyoak never spoke to me about that. But having said that, I was, as I say, committed, and I had an intense passion to want to do well. And if I didn't do well, then that would sometimes boil over, and that
yeah,
is not good. And that's something that I marvel at the current England players, at the way that they handle themselves in the spotlight, the pressures that they're under, and the maturity they show when they have the ups and downs that go with the game. You have to be philosophical. You have to understand that you'll have bad days. But as a coach, I certainly am quite happy to see a passion and a fire in the belly of young players.
yeah. I've always thought that it's got to be extremely frustrating to be a sportsman or someone in the public eye, wherever it was, a celebrity or an athlete, to have things written about you which are blatantly untrue. And like that's just a small example. Is Wikipedia. It can be edited by anyone, and you can go in and edit it yourself. But it's just the fact that it's there, and then I'm asking you about that. It must be incredibly frustrating. It must be difficult to deal with when you add in things like newspapers
Yeah,
and such.
yeah, it is. And what you tend to find is that people get tagged very very quickly. Um, and sometimes those tags are merited, and other times they're unfair, and they tend to um, give an impression or an unfair impression of people. So I had no one advising me about the media when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. I didn't know anything about the media. I didn't know about playing the media game,
Mm.
PR, your public image. I just wanted to play cricket. And back then, there was no mentor around to sort of help advise me. So, I had one or two incidents that happened, and very quickly, the media jump on you and tag you, and that can be very, very difficult um, to sort of change that perception. And here I am, I'm 51 years old, and we're talking about stuff that happened 33 years ago, and that can be frustrating because there's so many good things that have happened since then, but
Yeah, absolutely.
people choose and their agenda, and so I get interviewed by you, and even still, the first thing we're talking about is my younger days and how the intensity and the passion and the commitment that I showed as a young player. That's not really spoken about. It's more about a couple of disciplinary incidents.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta say, like, as a someone who kind of watched you from them from when you had your England, you made your England debut and followed your Middlesex career and then your Surrey career. I was always a big fan of that intensity, and one of the things which always stuck out to me, and I actually mentioned this when I was speaking to Adam Hollyoak in one of the shows on our cricket show, when he was on, was the level at which you were, or the intensity at which you would portrayed on the field when fielding. You took some unbelievable, diving catches and things, which at the time really stood out as unbelievable. I think these days the fielding, is a different game completely. Into everyone can field these days, but I think that intensity really showed in the way you took to the field. When you weren't batting, and again when you were batting, I think you can't perform at the level that you did in county cricket for 25 years if you haven't got that intensity and that passion. I was just looking at some of your figures. Like, you played over 460 odd first class games, averaging at over 50. Like, that's a phenomenal record. And I would say, I don't know, obviously you would know much more than me, but do you feel that your intensity and your passion for wanting to be as good as you could helped you to achieve such high standards and, first class stats?
Yeah, without doubt, absolutely. The worst season I had was in 1993, and that was when all I was trying to do was say the right thing, do the right thing, and actually it took away all my passion and fire, really. So I
Yeah.
think coaches have got to be really careful when they're dealing with young players. That it's a delicate thing to sort of get people to behave as role models, of course, which is very important. But you absolutely don't want to take away their intensity and passion for the game. Ben Stokes had to deal with that, obviously, in the incident, in the aftermath of the Bristol incident, and he's done incredibly well, and he's learned so much from it. And I learned a lot from it. But the passion and intensity, to do 25 years in first class cricket, to go to Derby on a Monday or whatever and try and perform to play Test cricket or whatever. Um, you have to have, I think, a drive internally. You people talk about motivation, and mine was a love of the game and wanted to try and be as good as I could be, and that managed to last a long career, and I'm sort of very thankful for that.
Absolutely, and I think to make your like you made your debut for England at a very young age. Like, 21 is young. Like, when I think back to when I was 21, like, I wasn't ma- particularly mature in terms of my decision making. So to play, I know it's different for athletes because it's their aim. They're always looking for that to hit the top of their profession or their sport. How did you? What was your reaction when you found out for the first time you were in the England squad?
Well, I was surprised because I hadn't had. I'd had a good England A tour in the winter, and I'd come back to England with Middlesex, and I hadn't started the season brilliantly, and yet my name was being talked about to play in the Test series that summer. And when I was selected for the first Test of a five-Test series against the world champions at the age of 21, I was surprised. Um, and I often people often ask me about it, and I often look back and think, well, what were the selectors? What were their expectations of me? Because when you pick players that young, um, the likelihood is that it's going to be very, very tough. And I went into an England dressing room with a lot of older players, people like Graham Gooch and Alan Lamb were in there. Phil de Freitas was in there, and Derek Pringle, Jack Russell. So I didn't know a lot of them very well. And it was a very tough series, and a lot of the guys struggled. And by the end of it, Alan Lamb and Graham Hick had been dropped. Michael Atherton averaged 9 in the 5 Test matches that summer. Um, so it was a very, very tough initiation. I mean, subsequently to that, since I've been coaching and that, you sort of try and, when you're adding young players to a team, you're looking to try and put them in, I think, and select them when they're more likely to succeed and
Yeah,
hopefully establish themselves. And of course, Look, England environment was a very different place back then in '91. You know, the management was really non-existent, and we didn't really have much of a team atmosphere because when you played and the match finished, you know, you said goodbye to people, not sure if you'd see them at the next game. So it was a bit of a
Okay.
revolving door in terms of players and stuff. Um, so look, it's a very tough initiation, um, and you know perhaps that tough start. Although I ended up playing all 5 games, you know, I only a top scored at 29, and I didn't really jump the hurdle to make me feel as though I belonged at that level, and then things became very tough.
Yeah, I mean, psychologically, is it difficult when you're coming in at a young age? Everyone around you, even the experienced players, are struggling with their own form, um, and like you were getting starts. I think you made a few twenties, if not. I think you got a start in pretty much every innings or most of the innings during the series, without perhaps being able to go on and convert it. Like, is that psychologically difficult for a young man to process? And then it wasn't too long after that you were kind of dropped in out of the side, and then back in, and then you were kind of in and out for a while.
Yeah, I think it is a tough thing for young players to handle, to be in and out of an environment. I think that you know things have moved on brilliantly since then, and the England team actually at the moment are very welcoming to young players, and I think they have been for probably the last 10 years. And they make sure that the environment's a place where you know there's humour. The senior players are very accessible, and you know sort of barriers are broken down that were perhaps there you know when I was playing in the 90s. You know there's the central contract system, so when people get selected they're more likely to have a run in the side. So look, you know there's a lot of factors there. I think they get a lot of support off the field, and they've got people to turn to if they are having any difficulties. So I think you know that's really good, and England actually have a record of young players or new players coming into the environment and doing quite well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what they realise now, which perhaps they didn't in the 90s, and this is kind of a reflection on society generally, but is that everybody's different. Everybody reacts to different motivation. Everyone reacts to different ways of critiquing their performance. And I think back in the 90s, whether it was in regards to sport or mental health or whatever it may be, it was very much a blanket kind of thing. Everybody was kind of dealt with in the same way. Whereas these days, I think the players are treated as individuals, which helps them settle into the side, as you said. Um, so yeah, you also you've like you mentioned you've done some coaching with England, with the England Lions, with the England team. Um, I'd like to think, as an England fan, that door isn't shut. Is cricket coaching still something you've got a passion for, and something that you would like to do in the future?
Yeah, I look. I really enjoyed my time. I wasn't sure what I was going to do when I retired in 2012, and Graham Thorpe gave me a call and said I would like to do some coaching with England under 17s, and I, I I didn't want to drop into coaching for the wrong reasons, i.e., that I had nothing else to do. But I went along, and I really enjoyed it. You very quickly realise that your career is over. You're an old codger now,
Hmm.
and you're working with the guys in front of you, and it was really I found it really rewarding. You know, when you feel that you can help somebody's younger guys who have got their careers ahead of them. You know, they've had a real energy and enthusiasm to them, and you know, you draw on your own experiences, of course, as a coach, to hopefully help guide and advise. Um, and but at the same time, you know, as a coach, you've got to be open minded because you know you never stop learning, and of course, the game itself has continued to evolve very quickly, especially with the prevalence of T20. So I really enjoyed the coaching, and the doors opened, and I did England Lions, and then the first team, and worked with Peter Moores, and then Trevor Bayliss. So um, that was fantastic. I've gained a lot of experience from that. I would like a role with a little bit more responsibility. So something like a head coach role would have been really nice to do.
Yeah.
However, I went for a couple of interviews and unfortunately, it didn't quite happen. So I took on this role with Harrow School, and um, that has given me a little bit of stability, and it also leaves me some time free to do other bits and pieces. So cricket events with the Players Cricket Association, or any media work that's perhaps going, which I enjoy. But if there were an opportunity in the future, then I'd certainly look closely at it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it would be a shame to not use your knowledge and experience, as we mentioned your record before. And I think, as you said about like we said about the media and things like that, I think if you're able to pass on that knowledge to these younger players who have not only got the traditional forms of media critiquing their poor appearance, but they've also got thousands of know-it-all cricket fans like myself critiquing their performance every ball, and of course every second of every game pretty much is broadcast on TV and radio.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult time for young players. Okay, just to finish off, you mentioned T20 cricket and evolution. Really, you did a bit with the Euro T20 Slam. Is that in 2019? Is that with Edinburgh Rocks? Were you the coach or head coach of that franchise?
I was made head coach of that one. Unfortunately, the tournament didn't go ahead,
Ah,
and
right. Okay, that's why I couldn't
yeah,
find anything further about it.
yeah, that's right. It was amazing because we had a very professional auction at Heathrow Airport, and it was very well done. It was all covered on TV, and we had some very good names involved in the tournament. But unfortunately, it didn't go ahead. So there have been some tournaments like that where backers have sort of people have come along and said, look, they want to do this tournament, but the money hasn't been forthcoming, and it's been a little bit of an issue actually for a few cricketers around the world. Um, that sometimes things are promised and then not delivered. So unfortunately, that tournament didn't go ahead. But you mentioned T20 tournaments. Of course, there are many successful ones all over the globe, and I think right now, a bit of an issue that is there globally is that the glitz and razzmatazz and the money of T20 is making a lot of young players. That's what they want to do. That's what they want to
Yeah.
gravitate to, and I really fear for the future of Test cricket. To be honest, I mean, what I grew up on was very much the longer format, and the reason was because it was accepted by everyone as the real examination of you as a player.
Yeah.
Because you have to produce your skills over a long period of time consistently. Whereas now with T20, you can literally, if you get 20 off 10 balls, you've had a great night. If you bowl, you can go hit, bowlers can get hit for a couple of sixes, but if they bowl a couple of slower balls or take a couple of wickets, they're quite happy. Full houses, lots of money. And so, the whole cricket landscape has changed, and we're going to see that as well next year with the launch of the 100 in England. So I do think that is detracting from people's longer format skills, and we have less people who really seem to want to excel at Test cricket.